Well, Mr. Fay, I mean, if we could begin with a few sort of just simple factual questions, because there's quite a lot that's not known about the GHF. So let's start with a fairly simple one. Where has all your funding come from since May?
Sure. Well, first, I'll just give you a quick line on who we are and what we do. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is an independent, neutral humanitarian aid organization.
Well, you're not.
With
Let's
one
just
mission.
Let's just stick to the questions as I ask them. So let's start with the money. Where does the money come from?
So we have publicly been reported we've received $30 million from the Trump administration in America. We also are funded by donor nations who have asked us for political and other reasons to not publicly state who they are. So I and we do not speak for them. So that's where our funding comes from.
Well, anonymous countries.
Yes, I can tell you they're in Western Europe, but again, they have asked us to keep this private, and we are honoring that commitment to them.
I mean, that's extraordinary and pretty unheard of in the aid world, isn't it? I mean, so you can't, for example, say whether Israel is funding this.
I can. We do not take money from Israel and would likely say no to money from Israel. Again, you interrupted me when I was saying we are an independent, neutral aid organization with one mission to feed the people of Gaza. And we've done that to the tune of 120 million meals delivered as of today.
Right. What is the cost of 120 million meals?
A lot. Our burn rate is a couple $1 million a day, and we are funded through the end of December. I'm sure you have heard, as we have, some rumors from politicians and governments talking about more funding and expansion. We are waiting to hear from the Trump administration on what that might look like. We are ready and eager to expand and feed more people. But as of right now, we are funded through the end of the year.
And if Israel and the Trump administration create some sort of new Palestinian zone for people, is the GHF the likely creator of that food and shelter?
Well, so again, like I said, we can't speak to that. We have heard the rumors. We have heard about rumors expanding us to 16 sites. We hosted President Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, and Ambassador Huckabee a few weeks ago. They asked very good, thoughtful questions and went back to brief President Trump. And those conversations are being had in the United States as we speak. But we don't have any hard and fast plans or approvals on expanding our current operations.
Okay, if the government of Israel isn't funding you, are Israeli individuals?
No, I don't believe we have individual funders. I believe it's the United States and the donor nations, like I stated.
Or companies or any other sources is what I'm trying to suggest, because obviously there are lots of other ways that money could be funneled into you.
Sure. And like I said, we do not take money from the government of Israel. We are independent and neutral, and we adhere to humanitarian principles of neutrality, impartiality, and independence.
What about the people involved in the GHF? Because there's only 2 people actually named on your website. So who are your directors and trustees, and do any of them come from either the CIA or Israeli security services?
No, we do not have any Israelis who work for us. And in fact, IDF are not on our sites, though they are in our operations center, along with KOGOT and various other coordinated agencies. Our staff, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's, we are independent, but we do work closely with the IDF to, one, deconflict outside our sites, and they, of course, control the border and are conducting a war. So they're responsible for the safety and security outside of our sites, and we are responsible for the safety and security on our sites.
Right. So who are the other people involved in GHF, and why are they not being named publicly?
So some of them are, and some of them are not, because their homes are being attacked currently because of reporting and disinformation, particularly people carrying water for Hamas disinformation. So they, are reticent to come forward. However, we have named our staffers, our executive director, who is a lifelong humanitarian. He comes from the world of USAID, as do most of our humanitarians. We also have former UN employees on staff every day out on our sites, working alongside local Palestinians to feed the people of Gaza. So they have decades and decades of humanitarian experience. Iraq, Afghanistan. One of the humanitarians who I'm close with on our team, who, by the way, gave the shoes off of his feet to a local worker who did not have any. So those are the kind of people that work for GHF, and they're lifelong humanitarians. He was at USAID. He's been in Africa. He's been in the Middle East. He speaks Arabic,
It's just very strange
Hebrew,
that people don't put their names to it. I mean, are there former security services people involved with GHF?
Yes, we also have
Former
veterans.
CIA.
No, U.S. American military, Marines, Special Forces operators, those types of folks who are our security personnel.
Well, so there are no former CIA people involved in GHF?
I'm not sure. We have a lot of people. We have a lot of security personnel, and yeah, there might be, but that's not who runs GHF. GHF is run by former humanitarians and USAID people. And again, I see this line of questioning, but we are basically an emergency food distribution.
You know, it's very unusual for an aid agency to be as secretive as the GHF, not to name any of the senior people except for two, not to say where your funding comes from. It's very unusual.
Well, it's also unusual to get death threats for feeding people in a war zone. So I think these are very unusual circumstances, and it's because this is one of, if not the most complex humanitarian crises of our lifetimes. And we have to stop pretending there's only one way to feed the people of Gaza. We are one way. We're not enough. We agree with those critics who say we're not doing enough. We would love to expand. We would love to do more. We have an open invitation and offer to work with the United Nations and other NGOs. We actually are working with Samaritan's Purse right now. They are on our sites distributing medical aid and ready to use supplemental foods, particularly for children. So we're handing those out now, along with potatoes and onions and the non-perishables in our boxes.
Now, most of the big aid agencies in the world are extremely critical of GHF, as you know, and accuse you of being accessories to the killing that is going on near your sites. You are coordinating very closely with the Israelis. You just admitted that. So why is this killing going on?
Yeah, I mean, I stated it. I'm not admitting anything. The way you're asking these questions, clearly you have an agenda. But
no, I have no agenda other than trying to find out what GHF is really about.
Well, as I said, we work with the IDF to deconflict outside our sites, and of course, they're waging a war. So the UN also works with the IDF and is also approved by the government of Israel to be able to operate inside Gaza. And so we are glad that the United Nations is trying to move more trucks further into Gaza. We're concerned about the safety and security of their operation, because you can see the casualties that are happening. And I do think it's interesting that you bring up the other NGOs that are highly critical of us. You may not know this because it wasn't widely reported, but at Nasser Hospital, a busload of our local workers, many of whom now sleep and live on site because of the Hamas threat, a busload was murdered on video. 9 of them were murdered, and the 20 living survivors were dropped at Nasser Hospital, where Doctors Without Borders is, and they were refused treatment. They weren't allowed in, and they were left to die in the courtyard. So when you're asking us these questions, I think you should be asking the NGOs what their agenda is, because we will work with any NGO to provide more aid. We believe more aid to the people of Gaza is the answer to many of these problems that you're bringing up, and we would love to work with them. We have had zero diversion.
I'd be very interested to know more about that incident, and if you have any video evidence, then please send it to us and we'll pursue it.
Sure.
I mean, the problem is not so much the amount, although that obviously people are starving. It's the way you're doing it. That's what people are criticizing. It is militarized. You know, you've got barbed wire or razor wire. You've got armed guards who end up shooting at people, and you've got the IDF nearby who are definitely shooting at people and killing them. You know,
so you can ask
a
the
GHF
about how
distribution site is like the bait in a trap, is what the allegation is. And you're luring people in, and then they're getting killed.
Yes, you're doing a good job carrying the water of Hamas, who says the same thing. That's what they are saying. And you are
just answer the question.
We have never shot.
Just answer the question.
We have never shot. What was the question?
Aren't you the bait in a trap in which over 1,200 people have been killed? No,
there have been 0 casualties at our sites. We have never fired a weapon at anyone. And in fact, I will tell you, the only casualties,
hundreds of casualties near your sites.
Yes, you say you want information from me, but you've interrupted every single question.
No, because it's totally untrue.
That I've been trying to give.
I mean, it's very, very misleading to say there have been no casualties at your sites. They may not be literally on your sites where the food is being given out, but the casualties are all near your sites where people are either approaching them or getting away, having got food. So it's very misleading to say that.
Those are two different things, and you are being misleading by conflating that, and you keep interrupting me
No,
when
no,
I
no,
tell you that there have been no
I'm stating
casualties.
the facts. The facts are widely known now that people go to your sites,
What's
they
the
pick
fact?
up food,
Tell me the fact.
and
Tell me the
they
fact.
either get shot dead going towards the food or leaving after they got food. Now,
And
they may
you've
not be
confirmed those
literally
numbers. The
on the
IDF?
site, but they are near the site. And the allegation from the aid agencies is that you have militarized your operation. You're working in conjunction with
Yes.
the IDF and with your own armed
So
guards, and therefore you are effectively the bait in a death trap.
Yeah, so you keep repeating that over and over. We are not. And I would like to point out, are you trying to tell me that the United Nations have never worked with groups like ours or militarized and armed security personnel? Because that's also false. Congo, Haiti, Bosnia, this is the only place on planet Earth that the United Nations has a problem with the way we are distributing aid. The American military in Iraq delivered aid itself, and you didn't hear this kind of criticism of it. So again, I would ask
So do you condemn
what
the
the
killings?
agendas of these aid organizations. Of course, every casualty is regrettable and a tragedy, and we push the IDF to deconflict
why is the
all
IDF shooting
time.
them?
You'd have to ask the IDF that.
But you're
And
the
by
ones who
way,
are working with the
hasn't-
IDF.
No, the
You've
IDF
literally
is
said they're in your
responsible for the
offices.
safe. They're in the operations center because the IDF also works with the United Nations. Have you asked them? Have you had a representative from the United Nations on and asked them why there are casualties all over their convoys, all over social media? Why they can only get
This is quite
6.5%
different.
of
This is
their
quite
aid?
different, Mr. Fay.
to-
You know, this is systematic. It's happening all the time.
Systematic? No, it is not happening all the time. It is not. We have been operating for almost 3 months, and it does not happen all the time. And by the way, this is an active war zone. We are delivering food to Gazans in an active war zone. And if you look at social media, you can see the videos of our distributions where there are no deaths happening. And then you can look at the UN aid convoys where people are swarming, people are getting run over, and armed men are riding it through Gaza City, having diverted it while people starve.
Yeah, before
there is
the
nothing
blockade,
humanitarian.
people were not being shot
humanitarian
near aid
about
sites.
that.
Before the Israeli blockade, people were not being shot at aid sites. Lorries were not being overrun. People were not starving. Since the blockade, all of that has happened. You've taken over the operation and the distribution of aid to a massively inadequate degree, which is why people are starving.
That's also not true.
And now people
but that's also
getting
not true.
shot. Well, it is true.
We were never meant. No, we were never meant to replace the UN. The UN is operating.
The UN was stopped by Israel.
Yes,
and lots of the agencies have been stopped. And you have been brought in.
No, not currently.
And you won't say what the truth is behind your organization.
That's false.
Because the suspicion is
false.
that you're an Israeli-American creation to enable the Israeli policy in Gaza.
If you'd let me get an answer out, maybe I could answer some of these questions. But that is false. The UN is allowed to operate now. And by the way, during the blockade, we pushed publicly. You can fact check this yourself, and so can your audience. Go to GHF.org or just Google it. We push publicly for the United Nations to also be allowed to operate. We have an invitation to collaborate with the UN. We agree that we are not doing enough. We are not enough.
They don't collaborate with you because
to...
you break all the rules of impartial aid delivery. You're not neutral and you're not impartial. You're working hand in glove with the Israelis and helping them deliver their policy objectives.
Yes. Doesn't sound like you're very neutral either. You're doing a very good job communicating Hamas disinformation to me and asking these questions over and over. I have told you there are no casualties at our site.
You can make personal attacks on journalists who ask awkward questions. It's fine. The facts are clear for everybody. More than 1,200 people are dead trying to access the aid that you're giving out. Your operation is not working.
Those casualties are not confirmed.
All say that you're getting it wrong.
I'm not denying that there are casualties. I'm not denying those casualties. These are experts that refuse medical aid to Gazans. We have refused no one medical aid. I have been there. I have seen us patch up kids with cuts and slashes and take care of pregnant women. And like I said, Samaritan's Purse is now distributing medical aid on our sites every single day. And we have never turned anyone away.
Samaritan's Purse is a very specific aid agency, and it's not. It's an American agency that's involved with religious groups in America. It's quite different to a lot of the international agencies.
So you would have them stop to
No. I'm just saying that they are a specific
religious
type of agency. They're very important in places like Sudan. I've seen them on the ground. But the
not
fact
important
is
here.
that
Not important in Gaza. Why are they not important in Gaza?
Oxfam, the UN, Médecins Sans Frontières, all of those people are deeply critical of what you're doing, and you're not taking it on board.
Yes, you're bringing up agencies who have literally publicly refused and let people die in the courtyard of a hospital. No one has died on our sites. We administer aid and food, and we
They're
have
all
not
dying
turned
just
anyone away.
outside.
And we've delivered
They're all
120
dying just
million
outside. They're
meals
being
to the
shot
people.
dead.
Some of those casualties, again, are from the Gaza Ministry of Health, a Hamas agency. The IDF has trouble confirming some of those and can't confirm the numbers that you are using, and neither can we, because we
You've
have not been
also
involved
presided
in
over a
any of those
system in which
shootings.
people are starving to death. I mean, you can't get
So
enough
we are
in.
trying to give them food. So I, again, shutting down GHF, which you seem to be advocating for, and the
I'm
people
not
who you
advocating
are
for
talking
anything.
to
I'm
are
trying to
advocating
ask you
for.
why you're
So,
making such a
right,
mess of it.
so how do you answer a question like that? You clearly have a point of view, and we're having a debate. You're not having an interview. We have delivered 120 million meals to people who need it,
Which is a
and when you
fraction of
look at
what's
United
needed,
Nations
isn't it?
convoys, I've
That
said
is
that
less
over
than
and over
one
again.
meal a day
I've
for the
said that.
population of Gaza.
I've said that over and over again. I have said that over and over again. We agree. We're in heated agreement that we should be doing more, and we would love to do more. We would love to work with other operations. And have you given the UN such scrutiny about why? Have you asked them why only 6.5% of 1,100 trucks made it to where they're supposed to go? Have you asked them about that? Have you asked them why there are casualties? Why truck drivers are being shot?
We have an impasse here between your organization and the UN and the other aid agencies. Are you prepared to invite them in to benefit from their experience and their expertise? And then listen to them when they tell you how to change?
Absolutely. And the first thing I would say is we have had an outstanding offer to help, an invitation to collaborate for weeks now. And actually, our leadership back in the United States has had meetings last week with some United Nations officials that we have described as productive. So we absolutely would collaborate. And like I was saying before, we've spoken to some of the local truck drivers where the UN and other aid organizations had left their trucks just sitting, not being delivered inside Gaza, and they did ask us for our help. They said they keep getting shot at, they're worried for their lives, the aid keeps getting taken, and they run back to safety. And then they asked, could you provide security? And we said, absolutely we could, but you have to talk to your leadership. So absolutely, as hard as we've been on the UN and myself today, we would love to work with them. Again, we believe more aid is the answer. We would love to scale. And by the way, a good humanitarian organization would put itself out of business, right? So if the full need is met, if the United Nations can prove that they can fulfill the full need, which they haven't, which is why there's these issues, why we exist at all, we could scale back even, or become advisory, or provide security. There are any number of ways we can work together with the United Nations, and we are very hopeful that we can achieve that very soon.
I mean, just on that, obviously, it is not the case that the UN was unable to provide enough aid. It is the case that Israel brought in a blockade and then brought in the GHF.
Well,
they replaced the existing aid infrastructure with you guys, and you created this new, unique setup, which has never been seen anywhere in the world before.
That's also not true. So we are a little different, I agree, but it's not true. As I said before, the UN has worked with armed security personnel many times in the past. Bosnia,
but
Haiti,
you are
Congo,
a creation
Sudan.
just for this setup, aren't you? I mean, you're not an existing aid agency with experience elsewhere.
That's right.
We're people who are brought in
emergency
to do this.
We're an emergency food distribution
and we still don't really know who you are.
Well, what I would say about what you said about the United Nations, their own metrics came out this week. Their own metrics. They can't get the aid where it's supposed to go. They have a 93.5% diversion rate. That's an A grade in getting your aid stolen.
That's
so
totally
it is
untrue.
not the case.
Where's that number come from?
No, it's from the UN, the United Nations.
When you say diversion, what do you mean by diversion?
The trucks do not get to their destination. They are taken, or they are stopped, or they are attacked by desperate, hungry people.
The fact is that Gaza wasn't
situation.
hungry when the UN was in charge of distributing aid. And since you've been in charge, people are starving to death.
So why was the UN needed to distribute aid if they weren't hungry? I mean, some of the things you're saying, just pure logic would.
If you knew anything about Gaza,
true.
you'd know that Gaza has been reliant on humanitarian aid for years. So the UN has been absolutely essential.
Yes, and listen, I'm not saying the UN shouldn't operate.
I get you're new to this,
over again. We would love to. We would. I would. The people who work at the GHF are not new to this. decades and decades of humanitarian aid in war zones like Iraq and Afghanistan, where the United Nations worked with not only militarized groups, but the United States military.
But what
so
is
like
your
I
answer
said,
to
this
the
is the
basic
only
point
place in the world.
that it is only since the blockade and the introduction of the GHF that people have been starving to death and being shot to death outside aid distribution points?
I would say that we are feeding people, and the United Nations should get their act together and feed people as well, because they aren't doing it. They moved 1,100 trucks and 6.5 into Gaza. 6.5% made it to their destinations. Like I said, I've spoken. I may be new at this, but I have spoken to truck drivers for the United Nations and other organizations inside Gaza who have explained to us that they get shot at and looted as soon as they start driving their trucks. And they asked us to help with security. So I think that shows you that our model works and the United Nations wasn't. That's why we're there in the first place, because the UN model didn't work. There was corruption, there was serious corruption, and the aid was getting diverted. And again, you can say it's not true, but it's literally on the United Nations website. Their own metrics say that 6.5% of 1,100 or so trucks in July alone. Their record overall for the last 3 months that they've been operating is
that's since 88%. The blockade. That is since the Israeli blockade, when a very small proportion of trucks have been getting in. That's not the history of aid in Gaza. The history of aid in Gaza is that it was being fed by the UN system, and then it was stopped.
Yes, and we advocated for the UN to be let in again, and they were, and they are, and they've tried to move 1,100 trucks through Gaza, and they can't do it. That's a fact. That's a fact from the United Nations website, and we will certainly follow up and show you if you can't find it. Because they're not controlled in the same way
by Israel that you are.
We are completely independent. We are not controlled by Israel. And by the way, they have the same level.
You're not independent, are you? It's just nonsense to say you're independent. You're working hand in glove with the Israeli authorities.
And your evidence for that is what? I mean, you keep saying that you don't have an agenda, but this isn't an interview. This is a debate. The IDF is conducting a war, and they control everyone, including the United Nations, access into Gaza.
I mean, if you're so confident, will you allow independent journalists in to see your operation?
We have already, and we will continue to be doing more of that.
Well, only under very strict restrictions.
It's a war zone, so there are certainly safety and security protocols to follow.
Well, journalists, are perfectly capable of looking after their own security protocols. We do it all over the world. So, I mean, are you prepared to let us in to see for ourselves what's going on and to talk to people about what's going on and how it's working?
Yes, I recommend you reach out to media@ghf.org and make the request.
And do you think you could facilitate that with the Israelis? Because they're the big obstacle.
Sure. By the way, we have been very critical of the government of Israel and the IDF. You can see those statements, highly critical.
What are you critical of?
We push them to deconflict. We push for them to deconflict. We push them for expansion of our efforts. We push them to allow the United Nations in, as I said. We push them to make it safer. Our job is to feed people, and anyone, including and especially the government of Israel or the IDF, makes that more difficult or more dangerous for the aid seekers, we call them out. And we have.
Chapin Fay, thank you very much indeed.